and good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the New Jersey Department of Transportation, and together with my colleague Chris King, the president of ITS New Jersey, I'm pleased to welcome you to today's ITS America briefing on the recently unveiled Digital Infrastructure Strategy Report. New Jersey's transportation partners have always been at the cutting edge when it comes to using technology to manage safety and mobility. As you can see, as part of our mission statement, we include the concept of using new technologies to continuously improve our customers' experience. In recent years, we've all seen incredible new technologies enter the transportation market, whether it's connected vehicle data feeding agency safety platforms, or the use of intelligence to analyze crash locations so designers and planners can get insight into recurring trouble spots. Simply put, digital infrastructure is here. But simply buying connected car data or deploying a new piece of technology on the roads is not enough. To have a sustainable impact on safety and mobility, you need a plan. There's a quote I've heard, and it certainly applies to today's discussion. A goal without a plan is a wish. And we simply can't wish for 0 deaths on our roads. We need to understand where we are, what we're doing, and develop a strategy for how to get there. And that's what we're here for today, to understand digital infrastructure and how working a strategy will help us achieve our goals of a safe and effective transportation network. At this point, I'd like to introduce Chris King, the president of ITS New Jersey. Chris?
Thanks, Sal. Good afternoon. As you said, Chris King. I have the pleasure of being ITS New Jersey's president for 2024. So I welcome you all from New Jersey and the surrounding areas for participating today. Just a little background, since I know we're nationwide today. Just, we have a great group of board of directors of 24 members, kind of public, private, and academic. And I think that's important in today's discussion as well, is that the reason we're here is to share this information. And it takes all of us, whether we're the private sector like NJDOT or our private consultants or our academic, universities doing the research, moving forward into this, future is a combined effort with all of us. So, we have over 65 members, and we're always encouraging new people to join. That's my ITS New Jersey president pitch to get more involved with ITS New Jersey, get more involved with our committees, and I'll talk a little bit later about things we have coming soon. But I invite all of you to listen in, as we're welcome to bring ITS America here to talk about their new digital infrastructure. The concept of digital infrastructure, means different things to different people, different types of sectors. So trying to become on the same page, I think, is important. And like Sal said, starting with a plan is the best way to do that. So I'm going to hand off the bulk of today's presentation is from ITSA. So I'm going to hand it off to Tim Drake, the Senior Vice President for the Public Policy of Government Affairs for ITS America. Tim, welcome today. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, and thank you both to Chris and Sal. I am Tim Drake. I'm ITS America's Senior Vice President for Public Policy and Government Affairs. And in this role, I manage our policy development, advocacy, and committee activity, including all of our efforts related to digital infrastructure. And I'm delighted to be here today to share a little bit about our recently published Digital Infrastructure Strategy Report. And I appreciate our partners at New Jersey DOT and ITS New Jersey for their collaboration on this webinar today. By way of introduction, our transportation system has evolved. It's no longer just concrete, asphalt, and steel. Today, our transportation system includes sensors, software, data, algorithms. It includes numerous technologies allowing automation, connected vehicles, mobility on demand, and a more sustainable and resilient system. And in this new era of infrastructure, we will link the physical transportation system with a digital layer that will allow us to gather, transmit, store, analyze, communicate, and share information in real time, and to use that information to increase safety, reduce congestion, reduce emissions, and enhance mobility for every transportation user. And I think that really must be our North Star. At ITS America, we don't advocate deploying technology for technology's sake. We advocate for developing and deploying technology to provide real outcomes for real people. In reality, technology and data already impacts much of the way we travel, but we have only begun to tap the potential of digital infrastructure. We at ITS America envision a future transportation system in which digital infrastructure incorporates all modes, bringing together highways and local roadways, transit, micromobility, curb space, freight, and even aviation to provide seamless mobility opportunities. We'll go into the next slide where we'll review the high level of our digital infrastructure strategy report that we have published in the fall. That includes insights gleaned from numerous forums, workshops, and meetings of ITS America's Digital Infrastructure Working Group. And we appreciate the hundreds of industry stakeholders, public and private, that participated throughout that process. We believe the report provides a foundation to push our collective conversation on digital infrastructure forward. I think that this report can help inform and contribute to FHWA's own efforts on roadway digital infrastructure, along with the efforts of our other industry stakeholders, such as AASHTO's Lighting Up the Interstate Moonshot. We continue to participate in DI efforts throughout the industry, including at the FHWA RDI workshop at TRB in January, and we'll build on those at another DI workshop at our own annual conference and expo in April in Phoenix. Our digital infrastructure strategy report identifies 4 key areas that are crucial to advancing digital infrastructure. 1, it begins a discussion on what a definition for digital infrastructure should include. 2, it evaluates digital infrastructure through the lens of use cases. 3, it discusses the need for broad stakeholder participation and collaboration. And 4th, it identifies next steps to implement the strategy. And I'll address each of these in turn at a high level. So first, defining digital infrastructure on the next slide. What is digital infrastructure? I have a working definition on the right side of this slide that has underpinned some of the work that we've done. And while it identifies a plethora of the pieces that make up digital infrastructure, it's also likely incomplete. You can read it here. I won't read it to you, but there are a number of those pieces of digital infrastructure, of the digital infrastructure system. In reality, I think the definition of digital infrastructure is still under development. I can tell you that it must include 4 key areas that any final definition should address. This is technology and innovation. So at its core, digital infrastructure is composed of technological systems and processes. Incorporating the aspect of technology and innovation in the definition ensures that it remains adaptive and contemporary, considering not just existing technologies, but also innovations that will shape the future of infrastructure. This will include things such as connectivity, 5G, broadband internet access, things that enable the real-time data exchange and communication. It'll include dynamic transportation systems, including ITS technology, smart traffic signals, and V2X communication, as well as continuously emerging technologies, such as connected and automated vehicles, drones, and electric vehicles. Second, a standards and reference architecture. Standards serve as the guidelines and norms that govern, you can go back a slide, that govern the construction, implementation, and interoperability of digital infrastructure components. They ensure a level of quality, reliability, and safety in digital infrastructure systems. Without incorporating standards, the definition of digital infrastructure would lack the structural integrity needed for scalable and consistent performance. This portion includes things like addressing protocols and standards for data sharing, enabling seamless integration and analysis of transportation data in order to inform decision-making. It includes cybersecurity, protecting critical transportation infrastructure and systems from cyber threats, including implementing secure communication protocols, encryption, intrusion detection systems, and regular safety audits, as well as interoperability and standardization, encouraging the adoption of common protocols and data formats and communication standards to support compatibility across all modes of our transportation system. Third, stakeholders. Digital infrastructure doesn't exist in a vacuum. Various parties like governments and businesses and consumers will interact with and rely on it. Including stakeholders in the definition acknowledges the range of interests and requirements that the digital infrastructure must serve. It is the stakeholders' needs and expectations that will ultimately define the value and efficacy of digital infrastructure. And this includes the typical transportation stakeholders, such as many that are on this call today, but also a more extensive view of public-private partnerships and a broader user base, all while continuing to focus on user-centric solutions that prioritize user needs and experiences. And finally, priorities and goals. Every digital infrastructure initiative will be driven by a set of priorities and goals, whether it's enhancing safety, increasing efficiency, improving accessibility, or ensuring data security. These aims will help guide the design, deployment, and governance of digital infrastructure, and including priorities and goals in the definition helps ensure that the infrastructure is purpose-driven and meets specific objectives, making it more than just a collection of technologies. This will also include, from our perspective, safety, sustainability, mobility, equity, and future-proofing. Next slide. So we also address use cases and a reference architecture. In April of 2023, we convened a workshop to evaluate 10 critical digital infrastructure use cases that would meet safety, equity, economic strength, and climate objectives. Those 10 preliminary use cases represent an initial blueprint for demonstrating digital infrastructure capabilities, but they are not an exhaustive list of potential use cases. I think these can be used as a starting point. We can use this to focus resource allocation, to define and establish achievable milestones, and measure the potential and progress of digital infrastructure while achieving meaningful results for the traveling public. And in fact, we will be undertaking an effort this year to better define what a multimodal use case ecosystem looks like for digital infrastructure. In the report, we provided an in-depth overview of 2 use cases, connected vehicle data and traffic signal integration, which we use to identify obstacles to success and to outline the necessary steps to mitigate them. Some of these issues included the need for a neutral facilitator, data standardization, the need for data privacy and security standards, the need to build trust in data exchanges and data reliability, data time sensitivity and integration challenges, funding challenges and needs, as well as integrating new and existing technologies with existing infrastructure. Finally, this section also addressed the need for a digital reference architecture and a shared data layer. I would note here that there are a number of systems that will be included within the digital infrastructure system. And digital infrastructure doesn't have to replace the many other standards that have been developed throughout the transportation system. Rather, digital infrastructure will truly be a system of systems and may require an architecture of architectures of sorts. The key will be providing a functional architecture that allows for innovation but prioritizes interoperability. And I think the shared data layer must provide trustable data for stakeholders to use and build from. Next, I'll talk about stakeholder collaboration. On the next slide, one of the key steps towards alignment on digital infrastructure will be to correctly identify the complex stakeholder map and ensure we're bringing each of these communities into the conversation. We made an attempt to outline a stakeholder map here, which you can see involves numerous stakeholders with varying needs and responsibilities. This starts at the bottom of this map with USDOT and other federal agencies, to state and local public entities, to enabling organizations, to the digital infrastructure user interfaces, and finally to the end users themselves. And as complex as this map is, it will also need to be expanded and improved upon. I think the key point here is that each of these stakeholders has a part to play in the development and implementation of digital infrastructure. And recently, we've been discussing how to broaden stakeholder participation. During our upcoming digital infrastructure workshop in April, we will be incorporating more voices into this conversation. Next slide. Fourth, and finally, we evaluated how to go about implementing the strategy. And we identified 11 key actions that it would take. First, setting a common vision, establishing a roadmap with defined milestones, defining digital infrastructure, prioritizing relevant industry use cases, allocating funding for technology, developing a facilitative policy and regulatory framework, making a difference through real impacts, emphasizing citizen-centric changes, leveraging industry associations to foster collaboration, fostering partnerships in collaboration with industry stakeholders, and regularly reviewing and adapting the digital infrastructure to meet technological innovation. That is a lot of steps to implementation, but each one of those will enhance our ability to deliver on digital infrastructure. Next slide. I do want to talk a little bit about a few thoughts I have that are relevant to the deployment of all technologies and innovation. Deployment of technology and innovation will not happen on its own. It requires an environment that can support it. This includes leadership at all levels, from the federal government down to the local policymaker. Leadership is required to make the space to try new things. A regulatory environment. We need to ensure a regulatory environment that allows for experimentation and innovation while holding stakeholders to standards around safety, equity, and mobility. This stable regulatory environment will also encourage private sector investment and a path to scalability. Public engagement. We need to do a better job of listening to communities and their challenges and matching those with technologies and innovation to provide solutions. We need to explain the benefits and deliver outcomes while developing trust that we have taken a sound and safe approach to privacy, security, and automation. In short, we need to stop talking about public acceptance and begin focusing on public engagement. Workforce. Technology and innovation often change a system's workforce needs. We need to do a better job of upskilling our existing workforce to meet the needs of the future digital system, and we at ITS America are working with labor to identify opportunities to ensure that this shift supports our existing workers. But that's not enough. We also need to create a pipeline of training opportunities for young people who will be attracted to working with computers, data, and innovation. Finally, investment. To truly deploy and scale technology, we need to prioritize investment across funding streams, not just limited to specific technology-focused discretionary grant programs. Funding for digital infrastructure should be a priority for the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program, the RAISE grant program, and other federal discretionary grants. It also needs to be prioritized at the state level, including through the use of federal formula funding. And we need to reevaluate the funding structure, which is designed for physical infrastructure and doesn't adequately consider the procurement, maintenance, and operations needs of a technology-inclusive infrastructure system. I'd also like to mention that recently, ITS America released a report on the impact of AI on transportation and mobility in December. I would encourage everyone to review that report. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well, because there's clear overlap between AI and digital infrastructure. In closing, on this portion, I truly believe that digital infrastructure will change the way our transportation system operates. I think it can deliver enormous benefits to increase safety, reduce congestion and emissions, and enhance mobility and equity. But we need to get to work delivering on the digital infrastructure future. And we hope that you'll add your voice to the conversation in that. So what is next? We'll go to the next slide. In the report, we call on USDOT to begin by setting a common vision and establishing a roadmap with defined milestones. We need a vision that defines digital infrastructure, identifies USDOT and industry goals and priorities around digital infrastructure, and provides a framework for development to a common end result, while allowing room for innovation and improvement. This year, our Digital Infrastructure Working Group has become a full standing advisory committee at ITS America and will be tasked with a number of activities to advance DI implementation. This will include what should be included in a common national vision for digital infrastructure and framework. It will also include advancing a multimodal use case ecosystem that shows how digital infrastructure can be implemented across a broad range of modalities and use cases, and include a discussion of standardization and reference architecture. It will also include beginning to develop policy that will underpin the future of digital infrastructure in federal transportation programs, recognizing the need to put digital infrastructure on par with hard infrastructure in the next surface reauthorization, and to address the unique nature of technology procurement. With that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Bobby McCurdy, who will talk a little bit more about these.
Thank you, Tim. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bobby McCurdy. I'm ITS America's Senior Director of Policy and Advocacy, and very grateful for the opportunity to speak with you all today. And of course, grateful for New Jersey DOT and ITS New Jersey for inviting us to speak with this group. New Jersey is a national leader in transportation technology deployment, so it's really great to speak to so many people from New Jersey DOT, ITS New Jersey, and of course, everybody joining us from across the country. So thanks again for being with us. I wanted to take some time to review some of the policy areas that we're looking at within 2024. Ahead of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and Surface Transportation Programs reauthorization in 2026, ITS America has an opportunity to propose policy which includes digital infrastructure in surface transportation formula and discretionary funding programs, USDOT initiatives and agencies, and other policy areas. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act includes many new opportunities to deploy intelligent transportation technologies, and we want to continue key funding programs, improve the program eligibility for digital infrastructure deployments, strengthen the research and development of digital technologies, and advance awareness of digital infrastructure's transformative potential within our nation's transportation system. All of which that Tim just described through our digital infrastructure strategy report, and ways that we hope to use that report to manifest some of the changes that we are articulating and the strategies that we hope to achieve. As part of those efforts, ITS America seeks to advocate for a number of policy principles, 3 of which are particularly relevant to our conversation today: digital infrastructure reauthorization, transportation technology funding, and enhancing the technology procurement process. I wanted to share with you some of our initial thoughts on each of these topics, as well as some other parallel areas in which we are in the process of developing policy. I would ask that you consider these recommendations as a framework for the policy conversation we are planning to hold over 2024 and beyond, rather than settle ITS America policy. But I do think this is a helpful exercise to get the conversation started. In terms of digital infrastructure reauthorization, a lot of what we are looking to do involves specific tweaks to Titles 23 and 49 in the U.S. Code. Some of those tweaks include efforts to formally establish a definition for digital infrastructure in the context of transportation programs, leaning on the definition discussion included in our report and which Tim covered at the start of this presentation. Additionally, we are looking to support USDOT's efforts to develop a digital infrastructure strategy or roadmap for widespread adoption across the country, which could include a newly created advisory committee to oversee digital infrastructure. There's a lot of different ways that USDOT could approach this, but as we know, their leadership is going to be a critical component of a successful deployment of digital infrastructure, and they are really best positioned to help get us to scale to be able to start seeing some of the benefits articulated as to what we know digital infrastructure can do around safety, mobility, efficiency, equity, and future-proofing our transportation system. ITS America will support policy which encourages increased support for transportation technology education efforts throughout USDOT. Finally, strengthening workforce development and long-term planning at the non-federal level for digital infrastructure is crucial to successful deployments, as Tim just described. Each of these represents opportunities to incorporate digital infrastructure throughout federal infrastructure policy through the reauthorization process. And of course, those are not all inclusive. There are still more things we're trying to do, but really there's just a couple key areas that we're trying to focus on in terms of how we can really take best advantage of this reauthorization period. Another area I wanted to talk about was transportation funding. ITS deployers need substantial and certain funding for technology, and that funding needs to be incorporated at the beginning of a project's life cycle and not as an afterthought. Current technology funding primarily comes from limited discretionary grant programs, which are insufficient to achieve the scale of deployment needed to make a measurable impact on the country's transportation system. To that end, ITS America is seeking to propose dedicated formula funding for transportation technologies and will be working with our members to determine the optimal structure for such funding. But such a structure must incentivize states to include technology throughout their infrastructure deployment process. This is not to suggest that digital infrastructure funding should be left out of grants such as Safe Streets and Roads for All and RAISE, but rather those grants themselves are not sufficient, and transportation appropriators are well positioned to provide greater support for digital infrastructure and other transportation technology solutions to meet our shared transportation needs and goals. As part of that effort, ITS America seeks to additionally encourage a reevaluation of the overall funding structure for transportation funds, which is currently designed for physical infrastructure and doesn't adequately consider the procurement, maintenance, and operations needs of a technology-inclusive infrastructure system. These combined efforts to increase federal spending on transportation technology and to ensure that operations and maintenance challenges are adequately addressed through federal spending strategies have been significant priorities for our membership, and ITS America looks forward to working with policymakers to help address these concerns. Finally, ITS America will develop robust technology procurement policy principles, which will aim to lessen the challenges currently associated with transportation technology procurement. The current transportation technology procurement process can be lengthy and onerous, slowing down transportation improvement projects and threatening the efficiency of investment in technology solutions for transportation purposes. While the procurement process is critical for ensuring that technology solutions are safe, reliable, and secure, the process can be improved to help agencies navigate the complex regulatory and policy landscape that surrounds transportation technology. Innovative procurement methods are being developed throughout the country, and ITS America seeks to amplify some of the best practices and lessons learned from those methods, including through the establishment of a national procurement vehicle and a bench of pre-qualified contractors who can help streamline the procurement process. Additionally, ITS America will seek to encourage outcomes-based procurement strategies, which focus on solving specific transportation problems with the best technology or method available, rather than focusing on elevating specific technology solutions or models. Finally, ITS America will consider encouraging best value procurement policies, which encourage transportation agencies to consider the long-term costs of technology options rather than opting for the solution, which is the least costly in the short term. Through these efforts to reimagine digital infrastructure within the reauthorization process, increase technology funding availability for transportation stakeholders, and restructure the current procurement strategies employed by ITS practitioners, ITS America is confident that the transportation technology community will be able to deliver significant safety, efficiency, and mobility benefits to the traveling public. Now, those are some of the three areas that we're really leaning into in 2024, but I think that there's a couple parallel areas that I'd like to discuss as well, just at a much higher level, and those will include data privacy, which is something that we are wholeheartedly supportive of, trying to figure out new federal ways to improve data privacy standards across the board and within the transportation sector. We are working with our cybersecurity community of practice to develop a number of principles or recommendations around cybersecurity, and I can get into a couple of those at a very high level. They would include report, share, and get notified of ITS cyber incursions anonymously. 2, every ITS stakeholder should receive cybersecurity training for the ITS environment. 3, be prepared. Don't let the first security exercise be an incident. 4, establish cybersecurity provisions in solicitation processes and standard practices, operating procedures for all technical capabilities. 5, cybersecurity plans and investment strategies must be driven by a whole of business approach. And 6, some different principles related to secure system design. I believe that those principles are going to be released in some capacity in the near future by our cybersecurity community of practice. We look forward to sharing that with the broader community. But from a high level, that's some of the ways that we're approaching cybersecurity today. Also, we want to be working on principles related to artificial intelligence. So these are some areas that we've been seeing a lot of movement on within the transportation space recently. We like to say that about a year or two ago, you wouldn't have heard people talking about artificial intelligence and transportation that often in the same sentence, but now you're hearing it all the time. I will be getting into, after we take some questions on these topics, some discussion around our recent report on artificial intelligence for transportation and mobility, which was released at the end of last year. And we really think it's a very timely and topical conversation around artificial intelligence for transportation purposes. So we will be going into that shortly, but we are considering building some principles based off of the potential that AI has to radically transform the capabilities of transportation operators to utilize data to enhance safety, efficiency, equity, and sustainability. And those are some concepts around transparency, privacy, explainability, equitable and representative data, human-centered approach for AI, accountability, and providing net benefits to society around things like safety and sustainability. So those are some of our policy areas that we've been spending a lot of time looking at and are poised to be able to deliver some thought leadership on in 2024. We just wanted to go over those at a high level. And let me go to the next slide here so we could talk about just briefly one of our main groups that's doing a lot of the work in this space, and that is our Digital Infrastructure Committee. As Tim mentioned, this was stood up to a full committee in 2024 within ITS America, and it is at the intersection of the public and private sector thought leaders and coming together to create policy around digital infrastructure. That's where a lot of these conversations about the policy that I just discussed will be included. There's a number of things that this group is going to do, but they're going to be developing a digital infrastructure vision and framework document to inform USDOT's digital infrastructure approach. They're going to develop deployment resources, including a digital infrastructure use case ecosystem guide, and they're significantly contributing to ITS America's digital infrastructure webinar series. So this group is working very hard to sort of move the needle on digital infrastructure. If you are an ITS America member and are not currently involved in the work that this group is doing, even the larger committee or the smaller policy working groups are both having a lot of really fantastic conversations right now. There was one just earlier this week where we got a lot of work done on some of these policy outlines. So really would encourage you to reach out to me, Tim, or our colleague Tina Williams to get you plugged in if you're an ITS America member looking to get involved. And if you're not an ITS America member and this conversation sounds good to you, please reach out because we'd love to get you on board. But with that, that's our primary conversation right now around digital infrastructure. Before we turn it over to New Jersey DOT, ITS New Jersey, and before ITS America highlights a couple of those items that we've sort of referred to, including our artificial intelligence report, we'd like to take the opportunity to open it up for questions.
Thanks, Bobby.
And
Yeah,
if you wouldn't mind,
if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the question and answer pod, and we'll make sure to address those in order. And also want to recognize Sal.
Great. Thank you, Tim, Bobby. Incredible information. I got to tell you, one of the things I'm walking away with, an interoperable system of systems that works to create an integrated multimodal ecosystem. If that's not a mouthful in one sentence, but it really does cover everything. One of the things that we were fortunate enough to do when we were at TRB is have the conversation between ITS and IT, and we partnered with our colleagues at the New Jersey Office of Information Technology, and we talked about a collaborative effort. We all recognize these days that cybersecurity is an incredible threat. As we talk about more and more connectivity, are there larger aspects of cybersecurity that you gentlemen feel would be appropriate to take on, aside from the partnerships that come, very valuable to them?
Yeah, so I'll kick off the answer to that and then hand it over to Bobby to talk a little bit about our cybersecurity principles. I think you're absolutely right. None of this transportation technology exists in a vacuum, and it's all subject to the cybersecurity risks that we see across the world. And our infrastructure is vital to the functioning of our transportation system, but also our economy and many other aspects of our daily life. So cybersecurity is something that we take absolutely seriously, and we recognize the need to have solid cybersecurity principles across transportation. So that isn't necessarily just specific to digital infrastructure, but it applies to every technology that we're deploying across our system. I would note, I don't envision a future transportation system that isn't more connected, that you couldn't describe as more data intensive. And recognizing that this is the future of transportation, cybersecurity has to be at the forefront. And I would note that I think privacy as well needs to be elevated in the conversation as a continuing concern. But Bobby, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, thank you, Tim. I would echo everything Tim just said, and I think that privacy and cybersecurity need to be at the forefront. But I would also say that for one of the things in our conversations with our members, one of the greatest challenges we're having right now is when good work on cybersecurity is being done and these standards are being created, oftentimes technology is evolving so fast that the practitioners on the ground aren't getting the standards proliferated to them quick enough for them to be able to adopt them and keep up with technology. So what we need to be able to do is have a more robust system of sharing these standards and sharing these best practices to ensure that agencies big and small are being able to keep up with the lessons learned and the things that we know are going to be able to keep them more safe. And I'm looking forward to being able to share with the full cybersecurity principles with the larger community, because we do have some policy related to that. But I think that it's definitely something that we're focused on, and in our conversations with NIST, we're bringing up.
Yeah, and I would just note, I think that there's a pretty large workforce component here as well.
Yep.
And historically, I think the transportation industry hasn't needed to rely on cybersecurity professionals as much, and we're seeing that's one of the aspects of that changing workforce that we're talking about is the need to elevate cybersecurity skill sets within the transportation industry.
I would, Tim, I'm just gonna to read a comment that I've seen in the question and answer, saying that cybersecurity of the OT is different than traditional IT. We should ensure that distinction is recognized in proposals we make, and I definitely agree with that comment, and that's something that I think is reflected in the work that we're doing.
Just to touch one piece, you mentioned workforce. When you're talking about the traditional transportation system, you go back, you have planners, you have engineers. More and more, you're seeing transportation agencies from the local level and the county and the state level looking at analysts, looking at data scientists? Is there an avenue for these types of skill sets to be really brought into the fold or incorporated into each aspect of a Department of Transportation? And is there something available that ITS America can point towards a workforce solution?
Yeah, so at a high level, I would say, we've been in conversations with organized labor in the transportation industry to help figure out how we address some of these issues. There's certainly a need for upskilling our existing workforce and encouraging folks to be able to fill those roles. And I think all too often in the past, we've relied on our IT professionals, or we've relied on maybe tangentially related positions and haven't focused enough on the specifics of cybersecurity. Secondly, I would note, I think there's a real opportunity to show an emerging workforce that they can apply the innovation and technology and automation and those types of skills in a transportation system, and really grow that workforce from the base. We have a number of research universities that are members of ITS America, and several of them are focused on this question of how do you increase the pipeline of training so that new members of the overall technology workforce see the transportation industry as a viable path. So I think that's a piece of it as well. Quite frankly, the transportation industry is competing with every other industry for these professionals. And so we need to be able to make the case that working within the transportation industry on data, on systems, on communications is a viable path and an interesting one.
I agree with everything Tim just said. And then from a logistical perspective, I just wanted to remind everybody, if you have questions, please put them in the question and answer period. We do have a good portion here for question and answer. So we have some questions that are building up here. So if you have any, make sure you get them in. I see some people might have their hands up in the chat. We're not going to really necessarily get to your questions that way. So put them in the question and answer function at the bottom of your screen, and we'd appreciate that.
I see there's a comment on workforce issues as well, I think, just to kind of relay off some of the things you said about some DOTs are prohibited from hiring IT professionals as they're limited to state IT and CIO offices. So competition is huge, and states can't often pay what the market demands. So I know that's a struggle with a lot of these, technical jobs.
Yeah, and I don't think we can overstate the concerns, especially of our small local agencies, right? These don't have massive workforces, and to hire a person specific to this role is often difficult from a budgetary perspective. And so there may be opportunities to, as Bobby was saying, share information better, share resources, and maybe an opportunity for increased collaboration between the state and the local level, and ensuring that all the cyber needs of the transportation system are met throughout that.
I see a question here. Outside of some of the states you've mentioned already, what states and cities are currently approaching DI policy and implementation well? I will just say that likely a good place to find a list for those is to look at ITS America's membership. Those people are really at the tip of the spear on adopting these technologies and making the investment in the proven innovative technologies that are being able to move the needle on our transportation goals. So if you just take a look at our website, you'll be able to see a good list of those. There's too many to list off here, but they are listed in writing on our website.
Yeah, I would also note that and we'll talk about this a little bit towards the end of the webinar. We just released a use case guide that provides a lot of examples of various entities that are deploying technology, and shows kind of the diversity that you see across the system. I would note also that there are a number of entities that are focused on a specific aspect of digital infrastructure, whether that's the AASHTO moonshot and some of the work going out west in Nevada and other states, whether that's local public transit agencies that are dealing with micromobility and trying to resolve those issues, or a local government working on curb space. And so these are all pieces of the whole. And I think one of the goals of ITS America with this multimodal use case ecosystem, it's a big thought, right? Sal, as you were saying, it captures a lot. What does it actually mean? And from my perspective, it's to try to show how all of these systems will interrelate. When I think of transportation, it's not just how do I take one mode in one direction. It's how do I achieve my mobility needs, and it's a full trip. Freight doesn't just appear from the port to your doorstep. There's highways involved, there's hubs, there's spokes, there's first mile, there's last mile, and everything in between. And until we think about this as a single ecosystem with interrelated parts, we're not going to be able to maximize the benefits. So one of the roles that ITS America is going to play is to tie all of these pieces together and ensure that this vision and framework that we need at a national level is able to help everyone, as I said before, work towards a common end vision. There's a lot of really good work going on, and we've partnered with a number of state and local entities and government agencies and others, private sector companies that are doing this work. And I think one of our goals this year is really to focus that in one direction under one big tent.
Tim,
And I'll just add one more point to what Tim just said, and that's that we'd be remiss if we're talking about the contributions at the state and local level to not mention the importance of the state chapters like ITS New Jersey in providing some of the leadership on that space. That a lot of the innovations we're seeing at the federal level are coming up from the states. And so without the work that's being done through partners with the ITS state chapters and their local partners and their companies that are getting involved with those, I think that we wouldn't be seeing nearly as many solutions coming up at the federal level.
Bobby, we talk about the collaboration, we talk about industry, we talk about government, we talk about the innovators. One of the chief innovators that we have, it's such a strong relationship here in New Jersey, are the universities, the research institutions that are bringing the next generation of technology specialists, of innovators into the market. I'll touch briefly on the piece that I see someone in the question asked, briefly, AI working in New Jersey's transportation systems and that multimodal ecosystem. The department coordinated recently with FRA in talking about railroad safety, rail crossing safety. And one of the universities, State University, has an AI solution to be able to monitor and detect and analyze rail crossings. Now, for a lot of the owner-operators who are thinking the big state DOTs and the interstate system, the national highway system, a lot of your rail crossings are not coming across an interstate. They're not impacting and slowing down. The gates aren't coming down on a 6-lane interstate. But that same network can be applied to the local street grid, where you have these types of detection systems that can analyze what are the repetitive problems at these rail crossings, which cause fatalities, which cause congestion, which cause local network problems. And so there are applications that are out there. I did want to stress, and the universities are a part of our ITS chapter as well. And they bring great ideas. They're parts of the board. They really do help innovate and bring about new ideas because they're hearing it from the kids that are bringing these ideas to fruition.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and something that Tim, our president and CEO, Laura Chase, and I have been spending a lot of time looking at is using universities as tech validators to be able to help with some of that process of really getting technology quickly to the ground level and making sure that we are able to deploy them rapidly and using that base of expertise that you just referred to. So I think that's an excellent point, Sal.
Hey, Bobby, a question for you. I know you talked about, you're calling on the USD for the vision and roadmap. Have you had any feedback from them at all with moving, the needle forward with them trying to implement something or gather the troops to kind of put something together in writing and documenting these things?
Yeah, absolutely. But I will turn that one over to Tim, who's been having most of those conversations.
Yeah, so we work closely with our partners over at USDOT across the board. This includes at the modal levels at FHWA and their RDI efforts at FTA and some of the work that they're doing around data, as well as the ITS Joint Programs Office. We do a lot of work with, and the Office of the Secretary. So conversations I think are ongoing, and I think USDOT recognizes the importance of digital infrastructure and the idea of having a national vision. I don't have anything to report at this time, but I think as We see a groundswell of support from the industry, and I think our members are really helpful in that, in calling on USDOT to provide that leadership, so that we can all be working in the same direction. I think our digital infrastructure report, which came out in the fall, it really pushed the conversation forward. So I expect to see more movement on that in the coming year.
Great, thanks. And just speaking of that report, just wanted to note that you guys have just posted a link to that on your website so people can go and look at it and get more details. Plus the use case library that you mentioned too, that has a lot of different technologies. So I just wanted to bring that to raise so everybody could go to those and get more information.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And again, all of this is available on our website. So please hop over there to see a lot of materials that are relevant to this conversation. I see two questions in the chat that are related to some of the things that we're about to get discussing. So I think it might be a good time to sort of get to the second part of the presentation. But one of the questions is, where are we seeing some of the successful, or what are some of the most successful technology deployments? Another one is, how is the AI proposal going to work? And so I think that we're about to be able to present on some of that. So let's go ahead to the next slide, if you don't mind, Victoria. ITS America has recently put out a couple of reports that I think will be interesting to people that have been asking those questions, and really to everybody on this call. First of all is the impact of AI on transportation and mobility. This is a report that, as I mentioned, came out in the end of 2023. It is a joint report from ITS America and Cambridge Consultants, which captures a bold, optimistic vision for a transportation sector empowered by human-centered AI implementation. The prospectus explores how AI can fundamentally change the capabilities of the American transportation sector while outlining key challenges and solutions associated with the deployment of transportation AI technology. It also provides key principles of responsible AI utilization, identifies key entities involved with AI implementation, and summarizes the recent regulatory environment for AI within the United States and key global partners. Ultimately, it is expected to serve as a roadmap for individuals and organizations considering deploying AI, as well as a foundational building block on which the next generation of transportation progress will be delivered for all. Available on our website. Basically, we put a lot of the same thought into this that we did with the digital infrastructure report. So there's lots we could talk about on this, and I think that really is going to be a topical conversation in the next couple of years. Our AI principles are building off of the work from this. Please, if you're interested in artificial intelligence, take a look at it on our website. Next, ITS America's National V2X Deployment Plan. This is a plan that we put together in support of and in preparation for USDOT's release of their own National V2X Deployment Plan. Again, this is a vision that involves equipping 250,000 intersections in 10 years with vehicle-to-everything equipment, and really trying to capture the promise of V2X technologies to improve safety on American roads and deliver other benefits as well. It talks about the guidelines on how to achieve operability, goals to achieve a rapid nationwide infrastructure rollout, an estimate of the costs associated with such a rollout, and a discussion on the proposed sources of funding for infrastructure installation. And I'd say also an important aspect of this is this was done with OEM participation, and it really does a lot of work in categorizing ways that we think that we can get to OEM deployment of V2X technologies, which we know is one of the bigger challenges and one that we think that we can solve. And so we are glad that USDOT was able to absorb a lot of the work that we put into this, and we're looking forward to seeing USDOT's final version of their own. But if you're wanting to see how we're sort of approaching this from ITS America, please take a look at that. There is I just quickly will say that ITS America and AUVSI developed a report on the current landscape of state policies and regulations impacting the deployment of autonomous trucks and convoys to identify potential barriers and inconsistencies from a patchwork approach of policies. We don't need to get into that one too much, but if that's something that you're involved in and you're interested in, again, on our website, take a look. And finally, this is one that I think that is extremely exciting. This was just released this January at TRB, so about a month ago, ITS America's Use Case Library. If you can go to the next slide, Victoria, we will be able to just give you a high-level overview of what this is. This is over 20 use cases of successful deployments of ITS technologies that we leaned heavily on finding results-based and benefits-based deployments, things that you can point to and say, this is what it did well for the community. These are the benefits that it achieved. This is a living document. It's going to be expanding. We're going to continue to add to it from the input that we get from people like ITS JPO and ITS America's members and the people that attend our annual meeting and conference and expo. We're getting lots of good information from lots of people, and this is the place to find where we're really collating a lot of it. So I put on the slide here a number of examples from the use case library, but I encourage you to take a look. If deploying this technology is something that you're about to get involved with or you're about to do, take a look at the library to see how it's been done in other places so you can replicate the best practices and learn from the lessons that each of these have accomplished through their deployment. Next slide, please. I just want to take this opportunity to do a pitch. As we've been saying through here, ITS America is at the fulcrum of public, private, academic, and nonprofit related to transportation technology deployment. We have committees where the public and private sector are coming together to solve challenging transportation problems. And we are working on reports like the one you heard from Tim and I today, like the AI report. And we're, of course, always present at our various meetings. So this is a great opportunity for thought leadership, networking, and some of the advocacy resources that ITS America has here in Washington, D.C. So if you are interested, please send an email to the email that's down at the bottom of the screen, membership@itsa.org, and become part of the conversation here at ITS America. Next slide, please. And then finally, April 22nd to 25th. So coming up soon in Phoenix, Arizona, the ITS community is coming together for a massive meeting on accelerating digital transformation. This is our banner event. Last year it was a lot of fun in Texas. This year we're going to be able to get a lot of work done on how we're going to position ourselves to accomplish the things that we've listed off in the call today. How are we going to be able to get the policy established that's going to give us the regulatory framework to really deploy ITS technologies further at scale. There's going to be a ton of people there that are all like-minded and all coming together to figure out how to best achieve the transportation benefits that we know we can do through transportation innovations. So please, if you haven't considered already, come and meet us in Phoenix, Arizona from April 22nd to 25th. It's coming up and you wouldn't want to miss it. And with that, I will turn it over to Chris and Sal to give any final comments from New Jersey DOT and ITS New Jersey side.
Sure. Chris?
Thanks, Bobby. Yeah, I'll just give my pitch for, as I mentioned, with ITS New Jersey, we had a pitch at the beginning of joining our memberships. We're trying to become more active this year. We have a lot of upcoming events that are on the horizon. There's a big transactions conference in Atlantic City at the end of April, beginning of May. We'll have a presence there with our ITS New Jersey booth. We do have a couple of sessions on signals and on ITS, and it's a great way for us to get the word out about ITS and the things that are going on and things that our agencies are doing to a lot of local municipalities and other planning partners that aren't typically involved in ITS New Jersey in these things. So we use these as a way to relay this information and share this information. Some lunchtime webinars, we're planning to do more of those, something similar to this. This was a great opportunity. We've already had one on our past annual award recipients from the last year. So we'll do more of that. And we're always open for topics. We're always open for people to join us, give topics like digital infrastructure or other, best case scenarios, use case scenarios that we can prevent. We're thinking about having another academic ITS research showcase that we had a couple years ago at the College of New Jersey, presenting all the different research projects that our universities are working on. Some half-day in-person events, as we're more and more in-person is better, signal preemption, EV, CV updates, and then, of course, our signature event, our annual meeting, which will be held again in Princeton at the Westin Inn, to be determined in October, is outdated. We've now discovered that we are going with October 9th for our event. That's a Wednesday, October 9th. And we're actually gravitating towards innovating safety, I think, with technology. So things that we've talked about today, kind of focusing on some of those things as we present. So please join us. We're looking for more participation from our members, or let us know how we can, always help you out better with different topics and whatnot. So I'll hand it off to Sal but thank you. I do thank ITS America for joining us today. I thank all the 180 plus people that were online today as well. So it's a great 1 hour session and learning something that's affecting all of us in the future. Sal?
Thanks, Chris. I do want to say a special thanks to our partners at ITS America. Bobby, thank you. Tim, really great discussion today, talking about the interconnectivity that does exist and will need to continue to grow if we want to improve the safety and the mobility of our nation's roads, whether that's Main Street through a small town. Main Street can be a state highway in certain places here in the state of New Jersey. And so we have that responsibility to ensure a safe and efficient mode of transportation across our network. And that means working with our partners, both on the public entity side, on the private organization side, on the academic side, on the institutional side, our planning partners across the board. It does take a village to be able to make your roads safe. And you really do need to have a plan instead of wishing for a safe system. Chris, it's always great to partner with ITS New Jersey. The ideas that come out of the organization, again, from all walks of life, really do spur innovation here in the state. And we are certainly appreciative of that partnership. In closing, I'd like to say thank you to all of you that have attended here today. We hope that the information that was brought was informative. This is not the only one that New Jersey is going to do. I've already poked ITS America and I told them that we're going to continue to do these and support expanding knowledge across the state and helping to really educate ourselves and other people in the industry as to what's coming down the pipe and what people can get involved with. With that, if anyone else has any closing remarks, I'd be happy to take them.
Thanks, Sal, and thanks, Chris. And just want to echo, our appreciation for you all and your partnership and collaboration here. And we look forward to continuing to work together as we advance these really important transportation issues. And so thank you again for the time.
The only thing I do have to make one more thing. Thank you to Victoria for helping make this run very smoothly. And we certainly appreciate it. I wish everyone a safe travel and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.